My topic is walking by faith, but I want to take 1 minute to show you my passion, what I'm all about. I'm a global missionary recognized here at the church. My mission field is, in missionary terms, is called the 814 window. If any of you know about missionary terminology, there's a term called 1040 window. That's where I believe 90% of the world population lives in the latitude around the world of unreached people. And the unreached people group that I'm focused on is the 814 window, which is 8 years old to 14 years old. It's the most important mission field in the world, I believe. This is what I'm doing.
We are in the age of information. A world of knowledge is at our fingertips. Entire libraries are condensed into a flash drive. But who is in control? Is history being altered to manipulate the future? Information is power. How do we know what is real and what is deception? There is an answer. A team embedded into the World Wide Web, exchanging information, empowered by faith and technology to find the truth. They are growing in numbers, networking around the world, fact finders, going viral, recruiting others. They are tech trackers. Follow the adventure.
So this is a missionary tool to reach 8 to 14-year-olds worldwide. I'm making connections in China, of course the U.S. I have a background 10 years in television production. Before that, just general video production. And so this is my passion. My topic is faith, though. And part of my journey has been accept faith in order to do this. And I want to read Hebrews 11:6 this morning. Now, without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For the one who approaches God must believe He exists and that He rewards those who seek them. And I underscore the word impossible, must believe, and that you must believe that He rewards those who seek them. Those are three components of faith that work together, like in this synergy. I know at this church we have a lot of people of different backgrounds, and there's a lot of definitions of faith out there, but I'm going to give the illustration of faith that I have found very simple and easy to communicate, and that's this chair. And so I can believe that's a chair. I can believe that's a strong chair. I believe that's can hold my weight. I can study that chair. I can photograph it, dissect it, everything. I can study it on infinitum, but until I do this, put my full weight on the chair, I really don't have faith that this chair will support me. And that's, to me, a really good way of sharing faith, because faith must be exercised. You must absolutely, like the free fall backward, fall into the arms of Jesus and trust Him for everything, or it's not really faith. So I could do a lot of different approaches and give you the word for faith, and we could go Greek and all those kind of things and bore you to tears. But I'm just going to tell you a series of stories. And I want to share one thing real quickly. I was at maybe it's been a year ago. There was 3 men here on a marriage seminar, and I liked the man who spoke much more. He had all kinds of credentials, but many books. But he said, my books and my name and all that is not what this is all about. This is about you. This is about walking in your marriages and all that. And so my disclaimer is this is not about me, and I want to get that out of the way so I'm not thinking all the time that in some way I'm drawing glory to myself. So, just quickly, my background, I did grow up in a church. It was not apostate, but it was I don't really think I saw an example of faith, and I don't think I saw any, what I would define today, real Christians. But I did go to church. I also went to college, and in college I studied architecture, and that's been my background. But the Lord got a hold of me after that. So I want to encourage you in my journey, because I became a Christian after college, after I kind of set my course vocationally. And I'm hoping that what I share today will help you hear the still small voice of God. I'm perfectly aware that many in this room may be light years ahead of me in faith, but you know, we all share our story. So I'll tell you very quickly, I was working in Nashville, North Carolina area. I had been a Christian a year and a half maybe, that I had really given God everything. After becoming a Christian, I read the Bible cover to cover in 6 months because I had been assaulted by a number of cults. So I'm mowing the lawn in Asheville, North Carolina, and I don't know how God does this. Today I still don't know how He does it. But as a very young Christian who had very little understanding of things, God spoke to me. And He said, go to seminary. And what's really interesting is I didn't know what seminary was. I honestly did not know what that meant. And I said, well, Lord, if that's you, it's kind of, because I'd read the thing about Samuel, I said, I'm not quite so sure I know how to hear your voice, and so you need to kind of help me out on this one. And so I said, like Joshua, I think, give me a sign. I mean, I need to know if I'm just thinking this up or whatever. So the very next day, what I'd never received before, I received an advertisement for a seminary in the mail. So I went, okay, maybe there's something there. Well, long story, I did go to seminary. In seminary, still a fairly young Christian, I'm really excited about all these things. I shared an apartment, and I remember crying out to God one day, and because as I got all these papers, I got file folders, but I didn't have much money, and so these things are piling up, and I'm kind of getting disorganized, and I'm really stressing out. I said, Lord, I think I understand between want and need, and I don't know, but I think I need a filing cabinet, because I'm really losing it here. I just can't keep track of all this stuff. So I prayed, and I just cried out to God. I think, Lord, I need a file cabinet. Have mercy on me, because I'm not going to do very well until I can organize that out. So I'm praying on my knees in my room, and I hear a commotion outside in our little living room area, and I hear some voices talking. Not, real people, but voices. And so I got up because I was curious. I walk out, and in the middle of my living room was a filing cabinet. And I went, wow, because it was pretty new to me. It said, wow, God answers prayer. I thought, that is amazing. And what happened is that my roommate was kind of walking across the apartment complex, and he happened to intersect with the manager of the apartments, and he said, hey, somebody's moved out because this file cabinet, anybody needs one. And he said, well, I don't know, but I'm sure one of my roommates can use it. Sure, let's get it. So all that happened while I was praying, delivered to my living room. Okay? All right? I can't orchestrate that kind of stuff. I can't make that kind of stuff up. Another thing that I'll be brief on, but it was another time I cried out to God. I got involved in children's ministry very early when a lot of the other seminary students were taking churches and being pastors and doing things. I just took a 3rd grade Sunday school class and poured my life into those kids. And one of the things, didn't have a creative background, so I wanted to put on a puppet show for them. and I decided that I was going to rewrite the book of Jonah in a poem form, and I was going to do this puppet show. And well, it was Monday night. I've been working on this, and nothing was happening, nothing at all. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I cry out to God, Lord, these kids need this. I got to do this. I can't. I need a poem tonight. And in 2 hours, now let me tell you a story about a story. Let's see. I'm not sure I can remember it. I'd say today. Let me tell you, children, about a story I know. It's in the Bible, so I know it's so. A man named Jonah, a prophet of old, and how God used the things he told. Because the word of the Lord came to Nineveh one day, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, don't delay. The people are wicked, you must repent, and I'll forgive them, but first you must be saved. That stayed with me all these years, but it was definitely a God thing, because I couldn't do it in my flesh. Another story that's impacted me greatly, it wasn't my own story, but it was my roommate's story, the one that brought the filing cabinet up. He was a navigator before seminary, and just a great encouragement to me. And he had taken a young guy on a trip, kind of a missions trip, and they headed from Southern California up to Oregon in this, I forget what it was not a very good car, but it was kind of a cycle-making trip, and they had an objective, and I can't remember what that was. But I remember when he came back and said, you will not believe this. And I said, what? Tell me. And he said, we made it to Oregon, we did what we're going to do, we're coming back, I'm I think 2 hours out of LA, and we had to repair my car. And that took the last cash that I had. So I'm sitting out $20 worth of gas outside of LA with no way to get back. And so trying to also be an example of this young man and also exercising faith, he said, Lord, I know we did this trip for the right reasons. I know you care about this young man and me, but I need $20 to get back. And I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm praying in faith that you're going to do that. And so he told me the story, how he cried out to God for that, and he asked the Lord for $20. And he waited and waited, and then he kind of said, Lord, I'm just going to stand here. I'm looking. I'm ready, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do other than wait on you. So he did that, and half an hour went by, and he was feeling extremely sheepish at this point and kind of going, what have I done? I've kind of put this test of faith out, and this young man is kind of waiting for something to happen. So Bill's there, and he's getting a little, a little anxious, and he kind of has his feet planted where he's waiting for God to answer his prayer. And I think at one time he just kind of looking around, and at one time I think he got down like this and just kind of waiting, and just keep waiting and waiting, and I think an hour went by, and he noticed something in the grass. You know how thatch is? He noticed that there was grass and thatch, and he just saw a little tiny something, and he said, wow. And he pulled the thatch away, little by little. You know what was there? An intact $20 bill. Now, I know that person well, and I just think over and over the years how that's encouraged me, how God orchestrated that. I mean, he had to have someone lose a $20 bill, it had to fall in the grass, had to get covered up, and it had to be there where my friend was at that point in time and saw it. That's the kind of God we have. We have a God miracle. And that's been an encouragement to me, and I hope it will be to you, because he had nothing but trust at that point to get back. I've kind of had a dual career. I've worked in architecture, but my real passion has always been media, so I've done media ministry throughout the years, never on a full-time basis. And I was in Spokane, Washington, working, and I took a part-time job in video production in order to support the family, and I did media ministry. And we had this kind of arrangement where I brought some equipment to the table and the company brought some equipment to the table, and I was able to work that arrangement and do ministry. And then like Joseph in Egypt, the Pharaoh changed, and the new guy, the head of the company, did not like the arrangement at all. And he started making it tough on me, and it ultimately came to the point where I had to, I recognized that there was sort of a coming to an end of this, and they were saying, you need to go full-time. If you're going to be with us, you need to go full-time, and you're not going to do any other ministry on the side. We're just, that's over. And so I felt that was an end to that, and I didn't know what else to do, and I kind of let things lapse. So I thought what I would do is this was just my idea. I had no divine direction, but I thought, okay, what I'll do is, since this is drying up, I'll go take my licensing exam over, get my architectural license. I'll be able to do that part-time, maybe do some homes and things like that or whatever. And then I can still have control over my time, and no one can tell me I can't do ministry. That was my thought. So I had to contact my old different the bosses, to get paperwork. So I called Jerry, and I should back up to give you part of the story. My first job out of Clemson University was in Dallas here, working for a firm. That they eventually went on and did Crestwood campus, Crestwood Baptist Church, big one. So I called Jerry and said, hey, I need to get some paperwork from you to authenticate my stuff for my license. And so they said, could you help me out? So I said, sure, but why don't you come back to work for us? And I said, no, thanks. And so we had to have several conversations, and the second time he said, hey, why don't you come back to work? We do big churches all over the country now, and it's real exciting. And they happen to do this church, the first phase. And I said, no, thank you, appreciate that, but I don't want to go back to Dallas. I really like the Northwest. I'm very happy here. My family's up here. And he asked me 5 times, and I was just so confident, this was not of God's will, that I just said no. He said, have you prayed about this? And I went, okay. And I laughed. I said, you're right, okay, I should pray about this. I have not prayed about your offer. And I was almost condescending, and I went and I prayed about it. And I got sick to my stomach because God spoke and said, take the job. Now, this was like total death of vision. I knew if I went back into church architecture that would be so all-consuming. I would never do any more video production. I'd worked in pro-life ministry and worked for gospel missions and all kinds of things. And that was really my heart. And I was attempting to do some children's productions and things. And so I just said, there's no way that you could be doing this. And I had said, I'll never go back to Dallas. It's too hot. I don't like it there. I knew I shouldn't say, I'll never go to Africa. I knew that, I would have rather gone to Africa than back to Dallas. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. At least, everybody knows in Africa you're suffering for the Lord. And anyway, so I prayed. I got confirmation. It was like, I was depressed for 3 years. I said, I don't know what to do this, Lord. Somehow make me happy doing this. Make it make sense. But this is like, I've wasted my whole life. I can't. It's not. I said I would give you everything. I put everything, architecture on the altar. I did all this, and so I will do this. And so then I had to tell my wife, which was, I thought, well, what's she going to say? God spoke to me and said, we need to move the Spokane down to the house. And I told my 12-year-old daughter, which can you imagine a 12-year-old daughter moving from the Northwest? She said, let's go, Dad, when you're ready, when we're going to go. So we had to make a trip down here. I agreed to do I hadn't agreed for the job, but I agreed to do an interview. So they flew me down, and I hit here, and because I'd lived here earlier, I saw Plano, and I had 5-acre mini farm in Spokane, and I said, Lord, I had 15 beehives. I had a big garden, and I can't really complain. So they told me about McKinney area, and said, well, maybe I can get out far enough and I can commute in, because it was Mockingbird and Lemon, but I had work. And so I was not looking for that. So I said, I was looking around. So and I don't know, who was in the service last week? Who was here at church last week? Paul. You know, I like what he said. He said when he was over in China, you know, God was directing that, you know, he had everything, you know, in America, it was harder maybe in some way to totally release. But in China, he had no ability to use his abilities to get things done. So he had to be totally dependent. Well, I'm not quite like that, but I'm here. And so I'm specifically praying. I said, Lord, I need contact here. I need someone to be here that can kind of help me if we make this transition. I don't know anybody in Dallas. And so I was praying that, and I'd come up to McKinney, kind of looking around. I heard that was a possible place to live. And so I decided I'd go. I found a Kroger store, and I decided I was going to go in the Kroger store, and I was going to get some real estate pamphlets. And I'd been talking to people, and I know some people probably thought I was really weird, because I was, I remember at a little fast food place, and how's it to live here, you know? And I'm like, who are you? So I'm walking into Kroger, praying, Lord, direct me to the people of your choice. All right? So I'm walking into Kroger, and as I walk in, I just happen to glance to the right, just briefly, and I look over, see a van, a guy, and kids in the car, and we just connected for a second. And I kept going. And again, I do not know how God does this. I can't figure it out to this day, but I got about 5-10 feet, and God spoke to me. Not an audible voice. And he said, back and talk to that man. Well, I was feeling a little embarrassed. I said, well, what do I say to that guy, you know? So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I made something up on the way. I saw a zoo sticker on the car. I said, oh, I happened to notice you had a zoo sticker. That's probably a little lie. I had to have some point of entry. So I said, hey, how's the zoo in Dallas? You know, and I start this conversation, and we're talking and stuff, and we tell each other, you know, a little bit of background, and he shares his background and says, oh, I work at a ministry here. I do video production, and I've been to seminary, and I went, click, click, click. Wow, we have a lot in common. Amazing. And so we exchanged phone numbers and emails, and I said, could you be my point of contact, you know? And he said, sure. I said, I'll be out of touch for a while. I'm going over to Israel to shoot a video, but I'll be back. And so we're off, and the time comes, and we kept in touch, and I kind of made arrangements. So here I am, moving the family down to Texas, and I don't know the best way to make this really punchy, but that man became my boss. I came down, worked in an architecture firm until 9/11 hit, and it wiped the firm from 50 down to 20. I was the third layoff, and I was out of job. And I'd been here 3 months, and this man, Don, said, you know, would you ever consider working for the ministry? And I said, oh, yeah, but God wants me to be an architect, so no. And I'm thinking, because I thought I came kicking and screaming at her to do that. And he said, well, great. I said, yeah, I really would love that. That would be my dream. But, you know, I'm pretty much sure this is what God wants me to do. It's this architecture stuff. So I was having a little pity party, and well, then we have this layoff, and then I'm available, and they hire me. And so at that point, and I tell people, there's no question that the move down here was the biggest step of faith I'd ever taken. I did something I absolutely did not want to do. It was total surrender. There was no flesh in it. It was just raw gut obedience. And then I'm rewarded with a dream job, full-time ministry, and things I love doing. That's God. That's what God does. I remember as a young Christian thinking God's going to take everything away. That's what he was all about. No, that's just the opposite. God is waiting for you to give it all up, and then he can dump on you. So, anyway, so that's what happened. So I'm working in full-time ministry, and my dream job, and God starts working again in my life, and sure, time-wise, okay. We have staff devotions every morning, and many of the supporters of the ministry would write in, and they would ask for prayer for their kids and their grandkids. That was the most common theme. So every morning we're praying for these people, and I'm praying, and because I've always worked in children's ministry, but an added dimension started to occur in my life where I just got a bigger and bigger burden. And I actually tried to say, hey, let's do some children's, ministry, and but it wasn't really the venue of the ministry. But I just got this burden, and this burden grew and grew and grew until I had to act on it. But I knew that it was going to mean another total sacrifice. And I didn't know the time frame, but I sensed, and I had some consultation that if I share my dream that of ministry, that it may be a short runway into that ministry. Not in any way negative towards the ministry, but just they needed people fully committed, and they didn't want you to be split in your interests and all. But something else happened to me that I've read in books, because I have, since the beginning of my Christian life, I've just consumed books on evangelism. And I'd read about these different men who started weeping for the lost. I'd never wept for the lost. I'd never, I wanted to reach the lost, that's the right thing to do, but the burden for kids grew to the point where I was having a real hard time composing myself as staff devotions, because it just was such a weight. And I literally, not in front of them, I started weeping for lost kids. So I said, man, you're doing something. So I had to take a step of faith and say to my boss, I think God's calling me to something in television production, but it's different. And it turned out to be a step of faith. And it was a year ago, last January, that I went from full-time ministry with a real decent paycheck to zero. And scrambling to try to tell people and share the vision and see what God's doing, but with nothing to show really, because when I left the ministry, I left all production gear, had nothing, in hand, not even a computer. And so that was another time where, I had to walk away from something that was very secure and comfortable and all that, but I had to obey God. And so I did. And some of you know my story, and some of, it was a very hard struggle, but the Lord has sustained us in some amazing ways. I'm going to tell you another little story, maybe another one that I obviously needed support of people. We needed to get equipment. We needed to do a lot of things. And so I had read Truett Cathy's book, and he had a heart for kids. So I thought, I really felt drawn. I'd really like to meet this guy. He's in Georgia, but I just kept coming to mind. And so I said, I'd just like to meet this guy, and maybe he would, I know he's got money, and maybe he would get behind the ministry and help out. So I decided to call the only person I knew in Georgia. And I did, and I said, do you know anybody that knows Truett Cathy? And she said, actually, I do. There's a man in our Bible study that worked for him. He was his first contract. some errands. So she goes off to do her errands, and 45 minutes later, she calls me and said, "Larry, you will not believe this." And he said, "I was driving around." This man had been there, I hadn't seen him in years. I'm driving around on I happened to see it in a estate sale. And decided, hey, I've got a few minutes, I'll go in and check it out. She goes in the estate sale, and who does she see? First person she sees is this man she was telling me about. Got his name and number, and connected us. I haven't met Truett Cathy yet, but I now, another friend that I was telling a story about said, well, I know somebody that he knows real well. So I now know two of Truett Cathy's closest personal friends. And I'm waiting to see if the Lord wants me to go meet him. But they said they would literally meet me, drive me to the headquarters or his home or whatever. They're on such a close relationship. So I don't know, but God put something together. That's a miracle enough for me to see what's going on. So, how are we doing on time? Okay. All right. I'm going to tell another little story. And last September, again, we were really struggling to make ends meet, trying to move the ministry forward. I talked to Rafe, and then I talked to Bethany. They were doing a video, going to do a video for Below the Child. They said I help her with a couple things maybe, and she was going to shoot it, and she wanted some advice. And said, well, just let me shoot it, okay? I'll just shoot it. And she got really busy and all, and so I said, you know what? It'd probably just faster to me to shoot it and edit it. So she was going to drive it around, and I was thinking that was going to help. But ended up she was busy, so I had to drive around, and it was literally I didn't have money for another tank of gas at that point. We were so broke. We were really waiting for a miracle, and we had seen a number of miracles going on. I was very, very, very concerned. So I am driving around, using up gas while I'm shooting all this stuff. And I remember having a little pity party for myself again. And I'm thinking, Lord, my kids' clothes, I can't buy my kids' clothes right now. And I'm thinking, they've got more assets than I do. And I said, okay, Lord, I know that's a bad attitude. I said, Lord, teach me to give the widow's mite. Just teach me that, because giving is hard. And so I'm driving around, and I keep driving by this place called the McKinney Flour Mill, and I just felt drawn to it. I just felt like there's something there that I need to access. And by the way, I've been doing some shooting for the production at the church here, and little by little the schedule got busier until I had no place to shoot anywhere. So I'm thinking maybe this building has an empty space somewhere I can shoot. Because every church I went to, they were so booked up that they had no place for me to shoot. And so I decided, I got the phone number, I called the owner, and the owner said, well, come on down. And so I hadn't told him, I said, I do have a ministry. He said, there's another ministry here too. And so I came and talked to him, and I said, how much is rent? And just kind of hoping to see what it costs, and maybe somebody would come in and support, pay the rent. And so he told me, he said, wow, that's a lot of money. And so I said, well, I'm not ready for that yet. But do you ever need any drawings done for like lease spaces? I need to lease some offices and things like that. He said, why do you say? Well, I have a degree in architecture. And I said, really? I said, yeah. I said, and he said, man, show me what you've done. So I actually came back and showed him the design and stuff. And he said, man, I wish I met you 6 months ago. And anyways, it turned out, make the story short, is that he eventually hired me in exchange for rent, provided a place to not only shoot video, but have auditions and all that. And beyond that, enough to support my family during the time I was still building the ministry. But when I first met him, because I've seen God work, and I had this little thought in the back of my head. to see if it worked out to want to say anything. And little by little, he just became very happy with how, he said, you help me with my project to get this flour mill underway, and I will get behind your ministry big time. And so I said, okay. I said, so I had to do a number of things to be able to do that. But, one of the main things they do at the flour mill is they have weddings there. And I'm in the back of my mind, ever saying to him, I said, I've got 3 girls, they're not married yet, I'm broke, I have no money for weddings. I mean, God, could you possibly be doing this? About a month ago, my daughter says she's getting married. The owner of a flour mill. $0. $5,000 in contracts. Don't! I would have never done that. Grass. For my little Anna, to hear her as I could. Sorry. Anyway, that's the story. Sit in the chair, walk by faith. He dumps hundreds fold more than you'll ever imagine, but it takes even 11.6 to pull off. You gotta believe even more. It's